There is a particular kind of silence that settles in after you finally walk away from a narcissistic relationship. And if you are honest with yourself, that silence is not peaceful yet. It is loud in a way that is difficult to describe to anyone who has not lived it. Your body is still bracing for the next argument that never comes. Your mind is still rehearsing explanations for someone who is no longer listening. And underneath all of it, there is a question that will not leave you alone. What is happening on the other side? What is he thinking? What is she feeling? Is there any part of them that misses who you really were, or was none of it ever real? If that question has been quietly haunting you, I want you to stay with me, because what most survivors do not realize is that losing a genuine source of emotional supply tends to trigger a very specific psychological process inside many narcissistic individuals. It is not random, it is not mysterious. It is not a sign that they are secretly changing. It is a predictable sequence, and once you understand it, something inside you begins to loosen. The confusion begins to lift, the self-blame begins to dissolve, and you begin to see the situation with a clarity you were never allowed to have while you were still inside it. Before we go deeper, I want you to know exactly why this channel exists. It exists for you, for the person who is still trying to make sense of what happened, for the one who is rebuilding an identity that was slowly eroded, for the survivor who wants to recognize manipulation before it costs them another year of their life. If that is you, take a moment right now and subscribe, because everything we explore here is designed to help you recognize the patterns, rebuild your confidence, heal the emotional wounds beneath the surface, and regain control of a life that is finally, undeniably yours. Every video is another step forward. Do not walk this road alone. Now, when a narcissistic individual first realizes that you are actually gone, the internal response is rarely grief in the way healthy people experience grief. The first reaction is closer to disbelief, and this disbelief is not the soft, tender kind that a securely attached person feels when love ends. It is a jarring cognitive rupture, because in their internal world, you were never supposed to be capable of leaving. You were categorized, you were positioned, you were the reliable mirror that reflected back the image they needed to maintain. And when that mirror walks away on its own, the psyche struggles to integrate the event. This is often described as narcissistic injury, and it is important that you understand what that phrase actually means. It is not simply hurt feelings. It is a destabilization of the self-concept, a crack in the carefully constructed identity they have spent years defending. And because their sense of self was never built on a stable internal foundation, even a small crack feels catastrophic. What you might interpret as shock or sadness on their end is very often something much more primitive. It is the panic of a system that suddenly cannot locate its own reflection. And this is where survivors get confused, because in the earliest moments after the separation, the narcissistic individual may appear surprisingly calm, even indifferent. You might see them posting online as if nothing happened. You might hear from mutual connections that they seem fine. You might even wonder if they ever cared at all. But that outward composure is rarely what it appears to be. It is image management, one of the most consistent behaviors observed in individuals with strong narcissistic traits. The public self must remain intact. The narrative must remain controlled. Any visible cracks would threaten the identity they depend on to function. So while your nervous system is in freefall, theirs is performing. And this is one of the most painful asymmetries survivors face, because you are grieving a real human being while they are protecting a curated image. Please hear this clearly. Their composure is not evidence that you did not matter. It is evidence of how much energy they must invest in not feeling what they cannot afford to feel. Underneath that composure, however, something else begins to build, and this is where the second layer of the process begins to reveal itself. Once the initial disbelief settles, the psyche shifts into a mode of trying to regain control. This is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet and calculated. It might look like a message that seems casual but arrives at a strategically vulnerable moment. It might look like a sudden reappearance of warmth after months of coldness. It might look like a familiar name showing up in your notifications, or a mutual friend suddenly asking how you are doing. This is often referred to as hoovering, and it is not about love. It is about equilibrium. When a narcissistic individual loses a genuine source of emotional investment, the internal system experiences something similar to a regulatory collapse. They relied on you, not as a partner, but as a stabilizer, an external device that soothed the parts of them they could not soothe themselves. Losing that stabilizer creates a kind of emotional withdrawal, and hoovering is the attempt to restore the previous state, not to reconnect with you as a person. And this is where I need you to be gentle with yourself, because if you responded to a hoovering attempt in the past, that does not mean you were weak. It means you were human. Your nervous system had been conditioned through months or years of intermittent reinforcement, that unpredictable pattern of warmth and withdrawal that creates one of the strongest forms of emotional bonding known in psychology. Trauma bonds do not form because you were foolish. They form because your brain, in an attempt to survive an unstable environment, began releasing powerful chemical rewards during the rare moments of connection. Those rewards created a neurological loop that felt indistinguishable from love. Understanding this is essential because you cannot heal what you continue to blame yourself for. The pull you felt back toward them was not evidence of true compatibility. It was evidence of a nervous system trying to complete a cycle it had been trained to expect. Now, when hoovering fails, when you do not respond, when you hold your boundary, when you refuse to re-enter the dynamic on their terms, something shifts again inside them. The mask of composure becomes harder to maintain. This is often when you begin to see emotional dysregulation surface, sometimes privately, sometimes in ways that leak into their public persona. Rage is common here, but so is a colder, more strategic form of anger that expresses itself through smear campaigns, rewritten narratives, and subtle attempts to damage your reputation. And I want to pause here and say something important. When someone rewrites the story of your relationship to make you the villain, it is rarely because they truly believe you were the villain. It is because they cannot tolerate the internal experience of being the one who caused harm. Shame is unbearable to the narcissistic psyche. It threatens the entire structure of the self. So instead of feeling it, they externalize it. They project it. They shift the blame onto you because if you become the source of the problem, they get to remain intact. This is not a flaw in their character that a heartfelt conversation could fix. It is a defense mechanism that has been operating since long before you ever met them. And this is a good moment to pause and remind you why understanding all of this matters. You are not learning this so you can predict their next move. You are not learning this so you can hope they finally see the truth. You are learning this so that you can stop personalizing behavior that was never actually about you. Every insight you gain is another thread of the trauma bond loosening. Every pattern you recognize is another piece of your identity returning. If this is landing for you, take a moment to subscribe, because the work we do here is meant to walk beside you through every phase of recovery. From recognizing manipulation to rebuilding self-trust, from calming a dysregulated nervous system to constructing boundaries that finally hold, this channel exists to help you heal faster and more completely than you thought possible. You deserve that kind of support. Please do not underestimate how much difference it makes to have a steady voice in your corner. As we move deeper into the process, another layer often begins to emerge, and this one is particularly disorienting for survivors. Many narcissistic individuals, once hoovering fails and rage has run its course, enter a phase of rapid replacement seeking. You might hear that they are already in a new relationship. You might see photos that seem to appear far too quickly. You might feel a fresh wave of pain that catches you completely off guard, because part of you cannot understand how someone who claimed to love you could move on with such apparent ease. I want to be very careful here because I know how deeply this particular moment cuts. What looks like moving on is very often something else entirely. It is a search for a new source of regulation. The internal emptiness that surfaces when a genuine supply is lost is intolerable to a psyche that has never learned to sit with its own emotions. So the search begins, not for love, not for depth, not for partnership, but for someone new to fill the void. And this is why these replacement relationships often move at unnatural speed. Idealization is intense. Public declarations appear quickly. The new person is elevated into the same role you once occupied, sometimes with strikingly similar language. But the foundation is the same as it was with you, and in time, the same cycle tends to repeat because the underlying dynamic has not changed. Please do not measure your worth against the timeline of their next relationship. The speed at which someone replaces you is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of their inability to be alone with themselves. Healthy grief takes time. Healthy people need space to process. When there is no space, no processing, no reflection, what you are witnessing is not resilience. It is avoidance in motion. Alongside this replacement seeking, something quieter often develops in the background, and this is where obsessive monitoring frequently enters the picture. Even when a narcissistic individual appears to have moved on, they often continue to observe you from a distance. This might happen through mutual connections, through social media, through indirect channels you may not even be aware of. This is not because they still love you. It is because losing control of the narrative feels like losing a piece of themselves. They need to know how you are doing, not out of care, but out of a need to confirm that they still hold some psychological presence in your life. If they see that you are struggling, it soothes the injury. If they see that you are thriving, it reactivates it. And this is why survivors often experience unexpected contact at the exact moments they seem to be moving forward. It is rarely coincidence. It is a system responding to the perceived loss of influence. And here is where I want you to feel something shift inside you, because up until now, so much of your emotional energy may have been organized around them, what they are thinking, what they are doing, whether they are hurting, whether they finally understand what they lost. That orientation was not your fault. It was the natural consequence of living inside a dynamic that trained you to monitor another person's emotional state as a survival skill. But you are no longer inside that dynamic, and every moment you spend rebuilding your attention around your own inner life is a moment you are reclaiming a self that was never truly gone, only buried under years of hypervigilance. As time passes, another stage often unfolds, and this one is subtle. It is a phase of denial and self-justification, where the narcissistic individual constructs a version of events that allows them to remain the protagonist of a sympathetic story. In this version, you were the difficult one. You were the one who could not appreciate them. You were the one who changed. This narrative is not built for your benefit. It is built for theirs. It is a psychological necessity because without it, the weight of self-awareness would become unbearable. Cognitive dissonance, that internal tension between how someone sees themselves and how they actually behaved, is one of the most uncomfortable states a human being can experience. And for someone whose identity is fragile to begin with, resolving that dissonance almost always happens by distorting reality rather than confronting it. This is why you may never receive the acknowledgement you deserve. Not because your experience was not real, but because acknowledging it would require a level of internal honesty that their psyche is not currently equipped to sustain. And I want you to sit with that for a moment, because I know how much energy survivors spend waiting for that acknowledgement, waiting for the apology, waiting for the moment they finally see it, waiting for the closure that never seems to come. I want to gently offer you something that may change the way you carry this. Closure is not something they give you. Closure is something you build inside yourself through understanding, through boundaries, through the slow and steady work of reclaiming your own story. The moment you stop waiting for them to validate your reality is the moment your recovery truly accelerates. Eventually, in many cases, the process cycles back around and intermittent hoovering may return, sometimes months or even years later. A message on a birthday, a comment on a post, a sudden appearance during a difficult season of your life. These moments can feel destabilizing, especially when you thought you were finally free. But now you understand what they actually are. They are not signs of transformation. They are not evidence of long-awaited insight. They are the same regulatory mechanism resurfacing, often at moments when their current source of supply has become unstable. And you get to decide, from a place of clarity rather than confusion, that you no longer participate in a cycle that was never designed for your well being. Underneath all of these stages, there is one truth that ties everything together, and I want you to hold this close. The inability to process authentic loss is one of the defining features of the narcissistic experience. Loss requires vulnerability. Loss requires the capacity to feel, to reflect, to sit with pain without turning it into blame. When those capacities are underdeveloped, loss cannot be metabolized in a healthy way. It becomes something to defend against, something to distort, something to project onto others. And this is why the aftermath of a relationship with a narcissistic individual so often looks the way it does. Not because they are monsters, not because they are supernatural, not because they possess some special power over you, but because their emotional architecture was never built to handle the weight of real connection or real endings. And that is not something you could have fixed by loving them more. I want you to hear that again. It is not something you could have fixed by loving them more. Your love was not insufficient. Your patience was not lacking. Your empathy was not the problem. You were pouring genuine emotional investment into a system that did not have the internal structure to hold it. And now that same emotional investment, that same depth, that same capacity for real love belongs to you again. It belongs to your healing. It belongs to your future. It belongs to the version of yourself that is slowly, quietly, undeniably returning. Before we bring this conversation to a close, I want to ask you one more time to subscribe to this channel, because the work of healing from narcissistic abuse is not something you complete in a single video or a single week. It is a layered process that requires steady support, accurate information, and a compassionate reminder that you are not alone in what you experienced. This channel exists to walk with you through every stage of that recovery, to help you understand the psychology behind what happened, to help you rebuild an emotionally healthy life, and to help you protect yourself from ever losing your identity in someone else's dysfunction again. And as you move forward from this moment, I want you to remember something that no manipulation tactic and no rewritten narrative can ever take from you. The true victory in surviving a narcissistic relationship is not that they finally understand what they lost. It is not that they suffer. It is not that karma finds them in some dramatic way. The true victory is quieter and far more powerful. It is the moment you realize that your peace no longer depends on their behavior. Your worth no longer depends on their recognition. Your future no longer depends on their approval. You are no longer emotionally governed by someone else's inability to love in a healthy way. And from that place, from that reclaimed inner ground, you begin to build a life that is not shaped by what happened to you, but by who you are choosing to become. And that becoming, that slow, steady, sacred process of returning to yourself is only just beginning.